pocket monsters. Pokemon. Pokemon has been around since the Stone Age, and it's been popular the entire time. Something that's become synonymous with the series is shiny hunting. Spending hours and hours and hours and hours running around in circles hoping to encounter and catch an off-colored Pokemon with odds of slim to none. Nowadays, the odds are essentially 50% better than what they were back in the early days, but they still suck. For those of us in the know, it is wildly addicting, getting that shiny after putting in all that work. Those odds can usually be improved though, and despite still being at the mercy of the RNG, the better odds can make the hunt much quicker and more tolerable. And that's exactly what we're going to be focusing on in this video. Lowering those odds and making your hunt as least miserable as possible, specifically focusing on the Nintendo Switch Pokemon games, from Let's Go all the way through Scarlet and Violet. So let's go ahead and get right into this, but first let me know in the comments which console generation of Pokemon games would you like to see me do this for next. Without further ado, this is the best ways to shiny hunt on Nintendo Switch. First game up is Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. While Let's Go is a remake of the classic Pokemon Yellow, it's not a traditional remake. Story-wise, it's pretty much one for one, but Let's Go was an attempt to bring over fans of the hit mobile game Pokemon Go. So instead of battling random Pokemon in the wild, the player simply tries to catch all the wild Pokemon you'll encounter. Despite this break from tradition, the Pokemon you encounter can still be shiny, meaning players can shiny hunt all their favorite original 151 Mon. Well, most of them. The best news is that the players looking to hunt in Kanto can actually see if the Pokemon is shiny in the overworld before encountering them. They will have their shiny colors as they walk around and also have these sparkles kind of floating around them. Base odds of a shiny spawning in is 1 out of 4,096. Your overall base odds can be improved to 1 out of 1,365 by collecting all 150 Pokemon in the dex. Mew is not required for this, and getting the shiny charm from this NPC right here. These odds can be further improved by lures and catch combos. Lures are purchased in Pokemarts, and I suggest going with the max lure since they last significantly longer than the two cheaper options. Keep in mind, lures actually last longer the less you move around, so someone riding or flying around will burn through lures much faster than a player who is sitting still or barely moving during their hunt. The last thing we can do to boost our odds is the catch combo. I'll go over how this works and then display a chart on screen that hopefully can clear up any confusion you may have left. I also want to state that the odds I mentioned going forward include the shiny charm, as I believe it's a necessity for all people looking to shiny hunt in this game. Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee keep track of how many of a specific Pokemon you catch in a row. This is your catch combo. You get better odds of a shiny of that specific Pokemon spawning in after an 11, 21, and 31 combo. After you've reached a 31 catch combo, you have the best odds possible, being 1 out of 273 if you have the shiny charm, an active lure, and the 31 combo. Something important I want to mention is that when you're shiny hunting in Pokemon Let's Go, you're gonna need money to keep this going for Pokeballs and max lures. One of the best ways I have found to keep this going without having to interrupt your hunt and go do the Elite Four is to sell the candy you accumulate. Once you've reached a catch combo of about 100 to 150, you should be pretty well stacked on candy, and you can just go sell this and buy more of whatever you need. And then I would say every 50 or so catch combo after you've reached the 150 mark, you should be stocked back up on candy, and this is kind of a way to just maximize your profits and keep the hunt going. Here's the catch. Once you've reached a combo of 31, those odds of 1 out of 273 only apply to the next Pokemon to spawn in of that species. So let's say you're hunting Pikachu. Upon catching the 31st and getting back to the overworld, the very next one to spawn in will have those 1 out of 273 odds. All others that appear after will have odds of 1 out of 1,024. The base odds with an active lure and the shiny charm. So if you're looking to optimize your hunt to the fullest, you'll want to keep catching to keep those best odds on each of the next spawns. Some argue that depending on if the Pokemon you're after is a rare spawn or not, it may be best just to get your combo up to 11, which, by the way, This is the catch combo in which your Pokemon will spawn in more frequently, and just begin phasing the Pokemon in and out. In other words, making them despawn by encountering them and running away, or just leaving the area and coming back, forcing new spawns of the Pokemon you're after to appear. The claim is that since your odds with the lure and the charm are already 1 out of 1024, you can encounter a higher number of Pokemon in less time compared to slowly continuing your combo, despite having better odds, supposedly equalizing the encounter rate and shiny odds between the two methods. I feel the need to make another important note about that 11 catch combo. Like I said, once you've reached 11, most Pokemon that you're hunting will begin to spawn in more frequently. And this doesn't even just apply to the one you're catching. It can actually make rare spawns come in more frequently. However, this doesn't apply to every Pokemon. It does to most, but some Pokemon, they're just gonna kinda keep spawning in at the same rate as before. So keep that in mind. Personally, I believe it's always better to just keep the combo going and maintain the best odds possible, regardless if it's a rare or common spawn. I've done my fair share of hunting in these games while going for a full shiny living dex, and I've tried both methods more than once. And in my experience, the best method to shiny hunt in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee is to always have a max lure active and to keep running your catch combo up until you get that shiny you're after. While this is the best method, I do want to mention you can obtain shiny Alolan form Pokemon through the available in-game trades at full odds of 1 out of 4096, and those odds cannot be improved. Same goes for the fossil trades. 1 out of 4096, they can be shiny, but you cannot improve those odds. And lastly, you can actually soft reset for the 3 legendary birds and Mewtwo. And while lures and the catch combo doesn't affect them, the shiny odds for these 4 legendaries can be increased to 1 out of 1365 with the shiny charm. Next up, Generation 8. Pokemon Sword and Shield was the leap from Sun and Moon's Alola region to the brand new Galar region, bringing in 81 new Pokemon and 13 new Galarian forms of existing Pokemon. The base game had a mean 400 Pokemon in total, and after the 2 DLC expansions, fans had about 664 Pokemon players could potentially shiny hunt. Oh yeah, that's a lot of shinies. Players were stoked. And then the game came out. And for about 2 years, everyone just kinda assumed the shiny hunting mechanics were broken. Honestly, even after data miners found out the truth and we learned how it's really supposed to work, it didn't make things much better. It's not broken or impossible, but it can feel that way because hunting in Sword and Shield takes a long time. If you really wanted to get down to it, technically, Dynamax Adventures in the Crown Tundra is the fastest way to shiny hunt in Sword and Shield, but that requires a Switch Online subscription and the second DLC. But the odds there are 1 out of 300 without the shiny charm, and an eye-watering 1 out of 100 with the charm. You face 3 Pokemon before going against a legendary. Whichever Pokemon you catch has a chance of being shiny after you've completed the entire thing, but they won't appear that way during the adventure itself. With great odds, a legendary per den, and being able to play these with up to 3 friends, it's not hard to see the appeal. However, just because the odds are this good, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a shiny each time. I've seen my fair share of droughts here with Dynamax Adventures, but it's not too common. The next best method for shiny hunters is probably going to be the Masuda method. Breeding was introduced many generations ago, and it's present in Sword and Shield as well. Odds for breeding are the typical base odds of 1 out of 4096. The shiny charm does bring this down to 1 out of 1365, but using the Masuda method with the shiny charm brings these odds down to 1 out of 512. So you may be wondering, well, what is the Masuda method? It's pretty much just normal breeding, but with 2 Pokemon that are from 2 separate regions. So in order to breed with these odds, you'll want one of the 2 Pokemon you're putting in the daycare to be from a different region in real life. For example, if you're wanting to do the Masuda method with Cinderace, you would need an American Cinderace and a Japanese one. This is just an example though. The 2 Pokemon can be from any different region. It doesn't have to be Japan or America. They both just need to be of separate nationalities. I suggest using a Ditto from a different region since Ditto can breed with any Pokemon. So if you're a US player like myself, having a foreign Ditto means you can Masuda method any random Pokemon you catch that can breed. Another bit of advice, if you decide to take the breeding route for shiny hunting, is to keep a Pokemon with the ability Flame Body in your party. This will speed up the hatching process significantly. Believe me, you're gonna want this, because you will be doing a lot of hatching Now, for those of you just wanting to do it the old-fashioned way and do your hunting in the wild, there's no easy way to do this. No secrets or cheat codes, but I'll go over it for the clinically insane anyways. First, get the shiny charm. Good God, please do yourself a favor and get the shiny charm. I know it's time consuming, but nowhere near as bad as trying to do this without it. With the charm, all the Pokemon you encounter in the wild have the odds of 1 out of 1,365. Now, these odds can be improved, but it's a grind, and it's a little complicated. I'll try to keep it short, sweet, and to the point. There's something called Brilliant Pokemon in Sword and Shield. It's these guys here walking around with a gold aura. With only having defeated one of whatever Pokemon you're after, there's a 1.56% chance of a Brilliant Pokemon of that species spawning in. After you've decided what Pokemon you want to hunt, you're going to need to KO 500 of that Pokemon. Now, keep in mind, you can check how many you've KO'd in your Pokédex. After reaching 100 KOs, you'll have the odds of a Brilliant spawning in maxed out at 3%. However, once you've KO'd 500 of any specific Pokemon, your shiny odds are maxed out for that specific mon at 1 out of 455. But here's the real kicker. Those odds only apply to the Brilliant spawn, which, like I said, only have a 3% chance of spawning in anyways. There's tons of charts out there breaking down the math and data behind this further for those that like to know why it works this way. Many find it more worth it to just KO 100, get the 3% Brilliant spawn rate, and only encounter the Brilliant Pokemon, since those are the only spawns that get the 1 out of 683 odds boost from the 100 KOs anyways. It's totally up to you to decide if it's more worth it to only KO 100 or to go for 500 and max out the odds. The only thing I have to say is I would recommend the two methods mentioned prior to this before hunting in the wild. At the end of the day, even the best odds or methods can take a long time because you're at the mercy of the brutal RNG. Just know, if you decide to go with the KO method, you're most likely going to be in it for the long haul. And if you're cool with that, I'm cool with that. Time to do a little shiny hunting and remakes of some of the most beloved Pokemon games of all time. Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Whether you feel the remakes live up to the glory is another story for another day. I'm here to help you understand shiny hunting in these two games, so let's get into that. First, let's go ahead and get this out of the way. The shiny charm is in these games, but it's pretty much useless. It only affects breeding. Better than nothing, I guess, but a serious downgrade from what we're used to. It's obtained the traditional way of completing your Pokédex. If you decide to hunt in the wild, just know your odds are the full 1 out of 4,096. Shiny charm or not. So unless you're a full odds hunter, this is not recommended. Like with most all Pokemon games where shiny hunting is present, you can soft reset for certain shinies. In BDSP, this applies to the starters and legendary Pokemon. In fact, BDSP actually allows for the player to shiny hunt some rather rare Pokemon this way, such as Shaman, Darkrai, and Arceus. Once again though, this is full odds. No way to be improved. Let's look at a way to hunt with slightly better odds. Shiny hunting in the underground. The old Diglett method. I know some of you may be rolling your eyes at this. No, I don't believe it's the most effective way to shiny hunt in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, but it's better than full odds, so I want to make sure we go over it. Before doing anything, make sure you speak with the man in this house and get the digger drill to build a base in the underground. Make sure to stack up on health items and whatever Pokeballs you plan to use. Lastly, before heading underground, make sure to have a Pokemon in your party with the ability Runaway, just to be safe. Keep in mind that you can only have one secret base at a time. You can obtain more digger drills and you can move your base around. You just can't have more than one at once. This method can be used offline, however, I recommend going online for this as it actually extends your better odds for 1 extra minute. Once underground, find a corner wall to build your base. Our goal is to collect 40 Digletts. Note that Dug Trios are worth 3, so even better. Alright, so go in and out of your base and keep collecting the Digletts outside. Ideally, if you're online and have multiple people doing this at once, then you're going to collect those 40 Digletts pretty quickly. You can run around the underground and collect them as well. It's just that going in and out of your base usually guarantees a Diglett here, and this can be faster than running around trying to collect them all from scratch. Once the bar on the left side of the screen is full, saying 40 out of 40, now it's time to go to a cave with Pokemon in it and begin hunting. You'll have 5 minutes once the Diglett bar is full to hunt with the odds of 1 out of 2,048. You get these same odds offline, but for 4 minutes. Something important to remember is that you need to save the moment you walk into a room with Pokemon. That is because once you've entered a room, all Pokemon that have spawned in have their chances of being shiny or not locked in place. So if you fail a shiny for any reason, you can reset the game and try again. Keep in mind that a Pokemon does not appear shiny in the overworld, so you won't know if it's shiny or not until you've encountered it. But that's pretty much all you need to know for hunting underground. This next method we're going to go over is pretty much universally considered to be the best way to shiny hunt in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, using the Pokeradar. I'm sure many of you were waiting on this one. First, in order to obtain the Pokeradar, the player must have beat the Elite Four and Cynthia and obtain the National Dex. Professor Rowan will then give the player the Pokeradar. You're also going to want the Chain Counter app, which you'll get from following Oak to Romana's Park on Route 221. To shiny hunt with the Pokeradar, the player needs to figure out which Pokemon they're after and locate a tall patch of grass where that Pokemon spawns in. Once standing in the grass, go ahead and activate the Pokeradar. Patches of grass will begin to shake around you. When it comes to chaining, even if you do everything perfect, the chain can still break. That's just the way the game's coded. If you knock out the Pokemon you're chaining, you have an 83% chance of continuing the chain. If you catch the Pokemon, you have a 93% chance of continuing. So, I always suggest catching while chaining the Pokeradar. Now, there's also a method to which shaking patch of grass you should encounter. First, make sure at least 4 patches are shaking after activating the Pokeradar. If not, reset the radar by walking 50 steps and using the radar again. Once you see 4 patches of grass, make sure at least one of those is 4 patches or tiles away from you. For the entirety of this hunt, you will always choose the patch of grass that is at least 4 away from your trainer. And this is super important. When you see a patch of grass shining like this, it is a guaranteed shiny. Always go after that patch. Alright, so for every 1 Pokemon that we chain, you're going to get a shiny odds boost. At a chain of 40, it caps out at odds of 1 out of 99. I know, those odds sound great, and they are, but getting there is difficult considering the 7% chance that your combo will break. It's so tough that a theory has been floating around for a while that you're better off just getting to a chain of 17. Your odds at 17 are 1 out of 1,986, and the claim is that since your chain more than likely will break before reaching 40, you're more likely to encounter a shiny around this range. This is based on tests ran using AI to simulate these situations thousands of times, done by a well-known Pokemon data miner. Tons of people still disagree though and say that you're better off going for 40. So take that info for what you want. And that's pretty much it though for Pokeradar hunting. But some other important notes are to make sure you're stacked up on repels and Pokeballs. Repels are obviously to keep other Pokemon away while doing this. Always save the game before starting your hunt, that way you can always reset and get your Pokeballs and repels back if need be. Once you've reached the chain you're going for, whether it be 17 or 40, do not keep chaining. Instead, just begin resetting the Pokeradar until a shiny patch appears. Make sure not to use your bike, leave the route, or turn your game off. And you're good to go. Pokemon Legends Arceus, a unique spin on the series, taking trainers to the distant past in a land known as Hisui, an ancient version of what would eventually be known as Sinnoh. And just like in present day, we can shiny hunt in this ancient land. Pokemon Legends Arceus actually brought with it some additional features that weren't present in Switch titles up to this point, like the ability to sneak up on Pokemon and toss Pokeballs at them without having to start an encounter, or the ability to save your game when you see a shiny, and in case you fail it for any reason, you can just restart your game, load back in, and try again until you get it. And you'll know when they spawn in, because for the first time since Pokemon Let's Go, we have overworld shinies. They also shoot out these stars when they spawn in, making it easier to spot those shinies, whose colors aren't that different. And just in case you can't see the shiny when it spawns, they also make this sound effect upon appearing. So make sure to keep your audio turned up while playing, and the moment you hear it, go ahead and drop a save. You can always search for it after saving and restart if you lost it. Now you know some important general details. Let's actually get into the shiny hunting methods. Pokemon Legends Arceus was the first Switch game to bring in mass outbreaks and massive mass outbreaks. Let's go over the former first. Mass outbreaks appear in random regions once you're a couple hours into the game. They can actually appear in multiple regions at once, and they will appear as icons of the Pokemon that is in that outbreak. Once you've traveled to one of those regions though, the others will disappear from the map, not allowing the player to check all outbreaks. But there is something we can do to work around this. First, you'll be told about mass outbreaks occurring when getting ready to leave the main village, Jubilife. It happens when you talk to the guy at the gate right before you choose what region you'd like to fast travel to. After seeing the map and outbreaks, go ahead and hit B to cancel. Don't travel anywhere yet. Save your game. Then you can choose which outbreak to hit first. Now that we saved prior to leaving the village, if the first outbreak we travel to doesn't have a shiny we want, we can simply reset the game and travel to one of the others instead. So let's talk about the shiny odds and legends. Then we'll apply this to outbreaks. So, the shiny charm is here, and it is useful. Now, you can get good odds even without it, but for those wanting the best odds, you get the shiny charm by doing your usual thing of catching all 242 Pokemon in the dex, but Legends Arceus actually requires you to go one step further and get a research level 10 on every Pokemon. If you look at your Pokédex, it gives you a list of tasks to complete for every Pokemon. Completing these are how you reach level 10 for each Pokemon. Shiny odds get a little crazy in this game, so bear with me. You see, not only does the shiny charm better your odds, but having that level 10 research also increases your odds for any Pokemon you have the research on. And since level 10 is required for the charm, by the time you have it, your base shiny odds are now 1 out of 819. But wait, there's more.
But wait! There's more!
If you complete all of those tasks for each Pokemon in your Pokédex, you'll get a perfect research status for that Pokemon, giving you another boost. So with research level 10, perfect research, and the shiny charm, your odds will now be sitting at an incredible 1 out of 585. And that applies to every Pokemon that you have that research level for. Now, going back to mass outbreaks, when clearing one out, just simply catch or defeat each Pokemon. 4 spawn in at a time, and a mass outbreak can have up to 16 spawn in over the course of it. The odds during an outbreak, with the 3 bonuses applied, being the shiny charm and the 2 different research boosts, brings you shiny odds of 1 out of 128. I'll show a chart in a moment showing your odds depending on the different circumstances in which you're hunting. Before that though, let's go over the other outbreak hunt, massive mass outbreaks. To unlock these, you have to complete a lengthy side quest that you start by speaking with Mai in Obsidian Fieldlands. Once you've completed this, massive mass outbreaks will appear the same way regular mass outbreaks do, having a random chance to generate each time you travel to Jubilife Village. And also, like regular outbreaks, can appear in more than one region at a time. To check each one, we do just like before and save in the village. That way if you don't get what you want, you reset and go to the other outbreak. Massive mass outbreaks though will appear as a question mark, and are actually multiple outbreaks appearing across an entire region. A quick note is that these occur during storms, and when the storm clears up, the outbreaks end. As mentioned, each of the outbreaks in a storm will show up as a question mark. To know what each outbreak yields, you can talk to Mai and her Munchlax in the entrance of the area. If you give her Munchlax 5 Aguave berries, he'll mark what's inside each outbreak on your map. Massive mass outbreaks work similarly to normal mass outbreaks. You show up, start catching or battling, do this until the reported Pokemon are gone. Except in MMOs, you have a chance of a second wave of that Pokemon spawning in once you've cleared the initial 12 or so. This second wave can be the same Pokemon, or its evolution, or even Alpha Pokemon, the enormous versions. Or it can be a mix of the evolutions and alphas. Considering this and the sheer amount of outbreaks within an MMO, there's a lot of variety and opportunity here. Here's the chart I was referring to earlier. So whether you're hunting in the wild, during mass outbreaks, or during massive mass outbreaks, this chart shows your shiny odds. You'll notice the odds are slightly better during mass outbreaks, but they're still really good during an MMO, maxing out at 1 out of 216. Let's wrap this up with a couple of extra details. Resetting your game will not change the spawns in a specific outbreak. If you get 12 non-shiny Ponyta in an outbreak, the exact same ones will spawn if you try to reset the game and try again. However, you can technically manipulate this and change those spawns for an attempt at one being shiny by multi-battling. If you 1v4 battle the initial Pokemon in the outbreak, you'll actually get different spawns for the remaining 8, giving you an extra shot at a shiny. You can even take this further by doing the same thing but with a 1v3 battle at the start of the outbreak. The Pokemon that spawn in after the 1v3 battle will even be different than those from the 1v4 attempt, with maybe a few being the same. This isn't required to hunt in outbreaks, but for those really trying to get a specific shiny, you can reset your game 3 times and try these 3 different ways to change the spawns I just mentioned. Keep in mind though, after trying the 1v4 and then 1v3 and getting different spawns, you can't just keep doing this over and over on the same outbreak. The initial spawns will be new from this multi-battle method, but if you try to reset and 1v4 a second time for fresh Pokemon spawns, it won't work. You'll get the same new spawns from your initial 1v4 or 1v3. Another tip for those looking to shiny hunt alpha Pokemon is that there is a way to manipulate outbreaks to do this. If you have an outbreak appear over a spot where an alpha always spawns, you can clear out this outbreak, then save your game and begin soft resetting. The alpha that spawns in will have its stats re-rolled every time you load back in, meaning it can be shiny. Now this doesn't work for every static alpha Pokemon, but there's a list on Cerebi.com of which ones it does work with, and I'll drop that link in the description. Last note is that when going to shiny hunt in outbreaks, which I believe is the most efficient way to shiny hunt in Legends Arceus, make sure you stack up on sticky globs. They make catching aggressive Pokemon so much easier. Hit them with 1 or 2, and they get caught every time. The final stop on our journey of the best shiny hunting methods in Pokemon games for Nintendo Switch. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. These games have no shortage of unique methods to hunt with, and surprisingly, they all work pretty well. First, I want to talk about the shiny charm. You obtain it the classic way by having obtained one of each Pokemon in the game. Unlike Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, it's not completely useless here. But unlike Sword and Shield, it's not really necessary. In fact, I personally never went after it, and I managed to get about 3 boxes of shinies in the first 2 months that the game was out. It does affect your overall odds though, so if you want things to be even easier, then definitely go after it. Breeding and the Masuda method is also present here, and works about the same, but with slight differences I'll touch on. There is no daycare building or NPC you can just toss your responsibilities off on here. You are the daycare. In Scarlet and Violet, if you want to breed 2 Pokemon, you just have to set up your picnic with the 2 Pokemon in your party and play the waiting game, checking the little basket beside your picnic table every now and then for eggs. This can take a while by itself, but we can speed this up with some sandwiches, specifically sandwiches with egg power. Egg power speeds up the rate in which you get eggs during the picnic. They last for a specified time, and in case you lose track of how long the effects last, you can hit right on the control pad during gameplay to see what sandwich powers are at play and how much longer they will last. The different types of sandwich powers have a level 1, 2, and 3. Most of the time, I would say always go for level 3. But with egg power, it's easier and almost just as effective to just go with level 2. Seeing as to how you can just buy sandwiches from any of the local shops in the game that have an egg power level 2. That pretty much covers all the new details about breeding in Gen 9. And remember, the Masuda method is present here. Since I already covered in our Sword and Shield section, I won't go into too much detail here, but that's the method involving breeding 2 Pokemon from 2 different regions in real life. So doing that, you have shiny odds of 1 out of 683 without the shiny charm, and 1 out of 512 with the charm. This is not the most efficient way to shiny hunt in these games, but it is an option. Next, let's look at a method that's returning from Legends Arceus, but works different here than that game: outbreaks. Outbreaks will appear all over the map. They can appear as either a picture of the Pokemon in the outbreak or a question mark. The question marks are just simply outbreaks of Pokemon you've yet to discover. Once you've picked which outbreak to go after, and you've arrived, begin taking down the Pokemon in the outbreak. The best way to do this is auto battle. You see, Scarlet and Violet introduces a handy mechanic that by pressing the R button allows you to send out the first member of your party to quickly take down enemies. One of the nicest things about this mechanic is that it will not attack a shiny Pokemon. The reason we want to take down Pokemon in an outbreak is because this betters our shiny odds. On screen here you can see a chart showing the odds with and without the shiny charm depending on how many Pokemon you've KO'd in any specific outbreak. I've redacted some info, but trust me, we'll get to that shortly. I'm just trying to ease you into it instead of jumping off the deep end. Once you've KO'd 60 Pokemon, you've reached the best odds possible. And it's important you're keeping track of this number, as taking out too many can end the outbreak. Usually a typical outbreak has about 80 to 120 limit before they disperse, so keep that in mind. That's the basics of outbreaks. There is a way to manipulate which outbreaks appear though. You'll notice that some outbreaks appear far more frequently than others. For example, you'll see a ton of Bronzong or Varoom outbreaks before ever seeing an Eevee or one of its evolutions outbreaks. To manipulate this, we're going to need to bust the sandwiches back out and this time, get Encounter Power level 3. Find the location where outbreaks appear of the Pokemon you want. This can easily be found online along with the recipes for the Encounter Power sandwiches. Go to an area near, but not on top of, where the outbreak has a chance to show up. Save your game. You'll always want to save your game before making a sandwich, so if you don't get the results you're after, you can reset the game and get your ingredients back. After saving, go ahead and make the sandwich with the Encounter Power you need. Normal, dark, fire, etc. And begin moving the date forward by 1 day from the Switch's system settings. Go back into the game and check if your outbreak appeared. If not, go back to the clock, move it forward 1 day again to reset the outbreaks, and then check in-game to see if yours appeared. Keep repeating this until you get the one you're after. It can take a while to get the rare outbreaks, but I can confirm 100% that this method does work. I've done it numerous times myself. Alright, to the next method, which can be combined with the outbreaks to give you the best shiny odds the game has to offer when hunting in the wild. But let's slow it down and go one step at a time. Sparkling Power. Ah yes, the almighty sandwiches show up once again, and this is the arc where they become more OP than a shonen main character. Sparkling Power works like the other sandwich buffs we've mentioned so far, but this one's directly related to shiny odds. This chart here shows some great recipes for Sparkling Power, for whatever type of Pokemon you're after. This is pretty self-explanatory. Make whatever type of Sparkling Power sandwich you need and go hunt it down. But we can actually do it better. The chart I've had on screen, these recipes don't just include Sparkling Power, but Encounter Power for each specific typing as well. Meaning not only will each Pokemon of the type we're after have shiny odds of 1 out of 1024 without the charm, and 1 out of 683 with it, but if we go to a spot where the Pokemon likes to spawn, that Encounter Power makes it to where a lot more will appear than usual. In certain areas, you can have a ton of only that Pokemon spawning in. This makes shiny hunting an absolute breeze in Scarlet and Violet. Since this can be done with any and all Pokemon that normally spawn in the wild, it kind of makes outbreaks obsolete and breeding reserved for the starters. If you wanted to combine this with the outbreak method, you certainly can though, and you'll have odds of 1 out of 683 without the charm and 1 out of 512 with it. So that is an option, and it does yield great results. In my opinion, the best shiny hunting method in Scarlet and Violet is the sandwich method involving Sparkling Power and Encounter Power, because in my experience, and many others I know, doing this method regardless of an outbreak and regardless of the shiny charm, you're gonna get the shiny you're after 99% of the time. The only difficult part to this is getting the Herba Mystica, the required ingredient. You can get the different types of Herba Mystica by completing 5 and 6 star Terra raids. They aren't guaranteed drops, but you can find tables online at places like Cerebi that show which Terra raid Pokemon are more likely to drop Mystica upon finishing the raid. I'll link them in the description. But that pretty much covers shiny hunting and how to do it effectively in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I want to mention this now though, just like with Pokemon Legends Arceus, in Scarlet and Violet, make sure to save in front of a shiny as soon as you see it. Yes, you can do that in this game as well. The moment you see a shiny Pokemon, before trying to encounter and catch it, go ahead and save your game. In case anything goes wrong, you can reset and try again. Technically, you can get a shiny Pokemon in a Terra raid, so you could hunt that way, but the odds are actually worse than full odds. Yeah, some genius thought that was a good idea. Shiny Terra raids are 1 out of 4,103. Neither Shiny Charm or Sparkling Power changes this, and I do not recommend this. Well, that is going to do it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you did enjoy, make sure to drop a like and subscribe for future content. And don't forget to let me know down in the comments which console and generation of Pokemon games would you like to see me cover this way next. Whether it be Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, DS, 3DS, whatever it may be, let me know down in the comments below. Until next time, Indominus out.